In the last 48 hours, the United States has carried out lethal strikes in the Pacific. Colombia is accusing Washington of murder for that, and the U.S. military is tightening the noose around Venezuela. What we saw are B-1 bombers. These are not the stealth bombers, the B-2, but this is the B-1 Lancer bombers, and they can carry a very large payload, and they are supersonic bomber jets. And two of those flew down to Venezuela yesterday and were just off the coast of Venezuela, flying around in circles in a show of force. Again, this is the second time. Remember, last week they sent B-52 bombers, which are enormous, not supersonic bombers that were doing the same thing, going down and making circles off the coast of Venezuela. I think any one of these things could be, okay, this is just a show of force. I think these B-1 bombers may have been doing a dry run for a later attack, because there's 2 or 3 reasons why they would do this. Putting those kind of aircraft in the air. Now, there weren't just B-1 bombers. There were also some F-35s in the air, and we've had other fighters and that sort of thing that have been flying around doing shows of force. However, with those B-1 bombers going down there, they also had a electronic warfare plane up in the air. And very likely what they were doing was scouting the response of the Venezuelans, trying to figure out how the Venezuelans would react seeing those coming in. Just number one, gauging the response of the Venezuelans, mapping out the locations of their air defenses, because the air defenses have radar. When the radar comes on, we can pinpoint them and find out where they are, and then watch them and see if they move or see if they're stationary or whatever. And so we can make our war plans based on that. Then in addition to that, we can also inure them to the sound of those bombers or fighters coming over, and so make it more likely that they'll be kind of lackadaisical if we ever end up doing it for real, sort of the sky is falling kind of thing. So after those B-1 bombers went down, flew around and flew back, or while they were in the air, somebody asked President Trump about it, and he said, no, there's no bombers. He just denied it, just flat out denied it. Maybe he didn't know that was going on, or maybe he just didn't want to talk about it. Now, he did get asked whether or not we were going to go to war with Venezuela and make a declaration of war. And I want you to hear what President Trump said when he was asked that. Take a listen.
Just ask for a declaration of war.
I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country, okay? We're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead.
They're going to be like dead. Quintessential Donald Trump. Now, Rand Paul is one of the few people who's just been extremely consistent about this the whole time, where he disagrees with that plan. Rand Paul says that is not what we are allowed to do.
So I really think that you cannot have a policy where you just allege that someone is guilty of something and then kill them.
The videos that we've seen coming out of these strikes make it a whole lot clearer than that. This is the most recent one in the Pacific that they've released video about. And this is not a fishing boat. You can see there, it's got 3 giant outboard motors on it. They have a closer photograph that they released of that boat with more detail that actually you can see the barrels of drugs on the boat. Also, the one that Rand Paul was talking about, I think in this case he's wrong, because those 2 survivors of the bombing that he's talking about there were taken off of a semi-submersible, which is not used for fishing. As a matter of fact, Pete Hegseth was asked about that in the same press conference that President Trump spoke at. And here's what Hegseth had to say.
You don't see fishing in submarines either, sir.
Yeah, how do you know these people aren't just fishermen? And he says, you don't see fishing in submarines.
So the U.S. military, as I mentioned, nobody better in the world at mapping networks, identifying who's connected to who inside terrorist organizations. It's just the media is used to hearing that when it pertains to Afghanistan and Iraq and ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But if you reframe how you understand the world in our own hemisphere That's exactly what these foreign terrorist organizations are. And so we will track them, we will map them, we will network them, and we will hunt them and kill them because they're trying to and they are killing and poisoning the American people. And inside that, we have all the license necessary, all the authorities necessary to take these kinetic strikes, and we'll continue to take them.
Technically, it's difficult to declare war on a non-state actor, especially like an all-out kinetic war, because non-state actors have to exist in a state. And if Tren de Aragua is the foreign terrorist organization that we're going after, and we declare all-out kinetic war on Tren de Aragua, they exist in Venezuela, and for us to go after them in Venezuela would be an act of war against Venezuela. And so there's a gray area here, can become a slippery slope. You have to ask yourself, President Trump said in that same press conference yesterday, he said, we are striking them at sea right now, and we're very shortly going to be striking them on the land. That is a direct threat to Venezuela and perhaps Mexico. And so striking them at sea or on the land is two very different things, because if it's international waters where you blow up that boat, that's one thing. There's nobody to complain that was an act of war against their country, although Gustavo Petro, from the president of Colombia, tried to make that case. Some of these drug runners might be, what did he call them? He said, in the drug transportation industry. It doesn't really fly, but for us to strike them on the ground means striking in another country, and that would be an act of war against that country. That's why Venezuela is getting pretty nervous. Just take them out. Just take them off the table. How would you feel about that? Videos coming out of Marines machine gunning some guys in a pickup truck that are trying to rush the border fence or something. Some people might cheer for that, and some people might be horrified by it. Now, I want to talk more about what Hegseth said there. He said, we have the authority to do what we're doing, but does that authority extend to striking on the land? Because again, that brings a whole nother set of problems. And that's what we're about to find out. Now, we've seen these jets that are flying down toward Venezuela and then turning around at the last minute coming back. We've seen this sort of inflammatory language, or very hard language, harsh language, from Pete Hegseth and President Trump and others talking about, no, we are absolutely going to hunt these people down and take them out. The question remains, are they going to extend that to Venezuela? So we have the bombers going down there. We have this kind of rhetoric. We also have things like what I'm about to show you here from the Southern Command, Southcom, that just put out this video yesterday, which it doesn't make any overt threats, but you tell me what they're telegraphing here with this video. It's showing here Marines getting off, landing on somewhere, and it's obviously done in training, but this is showing us firing machine guns, flying in with helicopters. United States Southern Command right there. So what's the message you take away from that video? Does that look threatening to you? Venezuelans definitely think it is pointed right at them and threatening them directly. And I think that's exactly what Pete Hegseth wants them to think, whether or not we are planning on invading Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro, yesterday, or several days ago, in a speech, actually started speaking English, obviously speaking to President Trump directly and the American people. And what he was saying sounds like, please don't hurt us, leave us alone, please, we don't want war. So take a listen to what he had to say.
War, not war. Just peace, just peace, just peace, forever, forever, peace forever. No crazy war, no crazy, no crazy war, no crazy war, please. Just peace, peace forever, victory forever, defeats, victory forever, defeats. Se llama.
What he said there in Spanish was, this is what they call Tarzan language.
No.
Now, keep in mind what Maduro just said. Peace, peace, please. No war, please. In the same day, he made another speech to some of his military people, and this one was in Spanish, so I had to translate it into English for you. But listen to what he said there. And when he says islands, he's actually saying missiles. They're a Russian missile that he's talking about.
Venezuela has no more and no less than 5,000 islands.
Missiles.
In the key positions of the anti-aircraft defense, even in the last mountain, even in the last town, even in the last city, which you can't even imagine in the Venezuelan territory, from north to south, from east to west, it has to be an impregnable homeland. Let no one mess with Venezuela, as we do not mess with anyone.
We wouldn't have a problem with Venezuela if they didn't mess with us. So in one breath, he's saying, please, we want peace, no war, no war. In the other breath, he's saying, we have 5,000 missiles arrayed all around this country. He talked more about it and saying Russia and Iran and China have all been giving military hardware to Venezuela recently. So it's likely that Venezuela may have some of the most advanced anti-aircraft stuff that China and Russia and Iran can crank out. I still don't think that's going to be any match for an F-35, but they certainly can pose a risk. Now, of those 5,000 missiles that he's got along the coast, all across the country, those are mostly missiles that are line of sight only. You'd have to be able to see your target to target it and fire a missile at it. The United States, by contrast, has lots of missiles they can fire from literally hundreds of miles away. And the first thing we would do if we were going to fly other planes over is have the F-35s go in and target all of the air defense assets, just like Israel did in the 12-day war against Iran. And then we would fire missiles from over the horizon out in international waters and hit whatever we wanted to hit inside Venezuela. So I still believe that the Trump administration is building up to a kinetic strike on the ground in Venezuela. I do not think that we're going to see an invasion. I don't think we're going to see Marines going across the beach or anything like that. If anything, it would be a very small force of special operators that would try to snatch Maduro or something like that. I have a feeling that Maduro has a plan in place that if there is an invasion, he will immediately jump on a jet and try to go seek asylum in another country and that we're not at war with and not willing to go to war with. So he might go to Russia, he might go to China, he might go to Iran, he might go to Colombia. So I think that's something to watch for. Without a doubt, he's got a plan to do that and to get out. I don't think that what the Trump administration has done so far, which is striking boats in international waters, both in the Pacific and in the Caribbean, rises to the level of a crime against humanity or a war crime or anything like that. I think the argument that these could be fishermen and we don't really know if they have drugs on there is a straw man argument. That is not an issue because we do have the capability to track these people and find out where they're coming from, what they're carrying, and where they're going. And Rand Paul made the point that these people aren't actually going to the United States. These boats are going from Venezuela across to Trinidad. So what? We know that there's a pipeline that comes out of Venezuela and goes up to the United States. This is primarily cocaine. And the fact that it goes through Trinidad and Haiti is irrelevant, really. But we do have to ask ourselves this question. Are we willing to extend this kinetic authority to the military for them to start doing drone strikes on vehicles that are driving north toward the border in Mexico or something like that? The real place where we should be focusing is in Mexico, more than Venezuela. Mexico, it presents a bigger threat to America, not the country itself, but just by virtue of its location. As far as illegal, deadly poison drugs coming into the United States, far more of that comes in through Mexico than comes from Venezuela.